Hello and welcome to Trucking with Tammy. Before we get started today, due to the nature of the discussion, I do want to put in a content warning ahead of time. So, strong content warning. This episode discusses sexual harassment and assault in trucking training programs, including quid pro quo demands, ignored complaints, and power imbalances. These are real industry patterns that can be triggering. Listener discretion is advised. Support resources like RAIN. You can call 1-800-656-HOPE. And Real Women in Trucking are in the show notes. Thank you. Welcome to Trucking with Tammy. This is Thursday's first Trucking Triumphs and Trials. Today's guest is going to share some unfiltered insights from years as an expert witness on why these issues persist and what real change looks like. Okay, so without further ado, I am going to welcome James Lewis to Trucking with Tammy today. Hello, James.
Hello, Tammy. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for joining us. So I just was letting the audience know that today we are going to be on a very strong content and gave a little bit of a content warning. Unfortunately, the topic that we are going to be discussing exists in this industry. We hate to hear about it.
You're right. Absolutely. I mean, we don't need to be graphic about it. I mean, but there'll be some hints and innuendos, I'm sure. But more than anything, this is a grown-up discussion about grown-up things that are happening out there.
Correct. So can you tell the Trucking with Tammy audience who you are and what kind of background you have?
Certainly. I'm James Lewis. I'm retired Air Force. I was a cop in the Air Force and then became an academic instructor. But at the same time, while I was on active duty in the Air Force, I needed a part-time job. And in 1987, decades ago, I got my Class A CDL in Texas and began working for a large home improvement chain where I drove a tandem axle flatbed delivering building supplies all over Abilene, Texas area. I've had a CDL since, of course, 1987, hazmat, tanker, doubles, triples, all that stuff. While I was active duty and then, of course, in the Air Force Reserve, I worked in several capacities in the trucking industry. And I also worked in the towing industry. If I didn't have 3 or 4 jobs, I just wouldn't be happy, I guess. It's an ADHD thing. But I've got 2.4 million miles. And then when I first started expert witness work in 2001, it wasn't in the trucking industry. It was in automotive cases like lemon law, dealer fraud, breach of warranty cases, because I had a background also at my day job was as a service manager in the automotive industry and then a finance person. So I started that. I did that 7 years, still had my CDL. And unfortunately, the law firm I worked for near Philadelphia kind of fell apart. And we all went like rats off a ship and scurrying. And I went back into the trucking industry. I was able to fall back right into a driving position and keep going. Then I thought, I've got time as an investigator, as a cop in the Air Force. I've got time on the stand, writing these reports, doing depositions and trials. On the lemon law side, I can easily convert that into trucking for compliance and commercial vehicle crashes, both on defense and plaintiffs. And I started doing that in 2008. In total, between my lemon law and my trucking cases, I've had over 13,000 cases in 24 years. I've testified over 1,000 times in trial and arbitration, and I've been deposed over 1,000 times. Lately, over the last few years, I've been doing a lot more appearances like this, talking about the trucking world, how compliance changes could help us, why we don't have compliance to begin with, why some companies are just looking the other way. And of course, that leads us right to where we are here as far as looking the other way from sexual assault, sexual harassment, bullying, intimidation, things like that kind of wrap up that whole thing. Unfortunately, that happens in many training environments in the trucking industry.
Yeah, it's very surprising to me. Being in Real Women in Trucking and with my advocacy work, I actually see the percentage of sexual harassment cases. But if you look on social media platforms, when a woman makes a post, the other women jump on it. They're like, oh, I've never dealt with that out here. I've never dealt with sexual harassment. And they have, but they
Yeah,
don't want to admit it because they get a lot of backlash.
I've
Um,
seen it. Yeah, I've
if
got
they
several
say,
close female friends that are drivers, and one, Megan, I've known her 20 something years, and she's a big tough girl, farm girl from Michigan, but and I asked her, "Have you ever been harassed?" Oh yeah, it happens. But she's so intimidating looking. I guess it just that's kind of the ward off there. But when someone has softer appearance or quieter voice, unfortunately, they may be seen as a target.
yeah, especially a quieter. If you are meek like a mouse, then you make a much easier target. Me, I'm very loud and outgoing,
Yeah.
and I'm not a very good target.
Right, and that's a good thing. And I'm not saying that a young lady or young man coming into the industry needs to yell every time they get around people and puff out their chest, but bullies in general, and I'm not just talking about sexual harassment, sexual assault, but bullies in general will target people that appear weaker, and that's
Yeah.
just a natural thing. So don't let first and foremost, don't look weak, don't appear weak.
No, no, no. And I'm a natural born protector. So I have more than once come to the defense of someone who is getting bullied
Yeah.
in transportation and other industries as well. So that is a lot of cases that you've worked, over 1,000. Um, how many of those involve driver training? Do you know?
Quite a few. Now that's 1,000 trials. That's 13,000 cases actually.
Oh,
There's
wow. Okay. Yeah.
yeah,
That's
there's a
a lot.
bunch, but a lot of them do involve training companies. The major training companies, Schneider and Werner and Swift and all these companies, and the majority of those companies do a good job. Um, Inevitably, I've defended a lot of those companies working as a defense expert witness, where and getting into the crash investigation side of it, the compliance side of it, it's very simple. It has nothing to do with what we're talking about right now. But just as an aside, my job is to prove on the defense side that truck driver had every right to be where they were, even if they made a mistake in a crash. The company has to defend themselves, and they usually defend the driver. And by the way, you are always named as a driver as a separate civil litigant. There is no magic umbrella that protects you. Sometimes the company will offer an attorney, sometimes they won't, just so you know.
Right.
I know that's a different subject, but gosh, that's
It
one
is,
of those.
it is, and that's a topic that I really want to address
Yeah,
on a whole new episode because
not a problem.
a lot of
Well,
drivers don't know the correct way to handle themselves in those situations,
exactly.
and I want to
Exactly.
provide that information. But
Yeah, I'd love to.
having
I'd love to.
having said that, I do have a question
Yeah.
about so when a driver has an accident, is your job to prove that they should be there. Now, with the topic that we're discussing today, your role really changes
It
because,
would. Yeah.
yeah. So,
Well,
what is your role when there is a case like what we're discussing today?
Well, honestly, I've never been involved in a sexual harassment or sexual assault case as an expert on the defense or plaintiff side, which is weird because I've been involved in every kind of case involving trucking you can imagine, except for those. And that's sad to me. And the reason I say that is because they're not getting prosecuted. They're not
That's
going to
where I
court.
was going with that. Yeah,
That's
because they're not
exactly
seeing
why.
trial.
You would think, because I've been active, I've had over 4,000 cases since 2008. Heck, in the last 3.5 years, I've done over 500. Um, None of those have involved sexual harassment or sexual assault. None of them, because they never see daylight. And I would love to be involved in one because of my background and having dealt with that, and of course being the big brother figure. And now I'm a dad, I'm a granddad, I'm a great grandfather. And I would love to be involved in one of those where a trainee bullies a trainer bullies a trainee into a bad scenario like that. I'd like to be part of that, but unfortunately, I've never seen one, and
No,
that's a true shame.
I think they settle before going, and there's probably a reason for that because the more attention that they draw, then the more people that's going to come out of the woodwork with their own complaints.
Well, I
Um,
think so too. We were talking offline over the last couple of weeks that the problem is these cases never reach anywhere near something to be settled because unfortunately they're dismissed by the safety department, by recruiting, by HR. Oh, you misunderstood. That guy is a great trainer. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. He's a great trainer. We've never had any complaints on him. Really? Well, he just tried to physically assault a lady by touching her while she was changing clothes. Come on, and there's only a curtain dividing you between the driver's seat and the sleeper area, and someone crossed that line, oh, but we've never had a complaint. Well, maybe that's because after they got caught, they intimidated the heck out of that person and they didn't complain. They didn't report it. Because I know
or
that.
the person they went to kind of talked to them, brushed it off, which I've seen a lot.
I've seen it a
There's
lot. I've seen it at both the major companies that I've dealt with. And it's, of course, my head exploded. I'm like, are you kidding? I'm from Texas. We beat people up for messing with our ladies. I mean, whether it's a sister, cousin, whatever, I mean, God forbid, you break my little sister's heart, we're going to have a visit.
Well, I'm a grown woman, but my bigger brother, I mean, he's younger than me, but he's much bigger. He's 6'4", and he will still protect his little sister. So
absolutely, as it should be.
So and that's how it should be, but we should be protecting our drivers as well. So
Right.
Today's episode, that's what we're going to do. We're going to talk about your experience in the past, and we're going to talk about how things are, the patterns, how they're going to do it, and what we need to do to change that. So I am absolutely looking forward to this because sexual assault and sexual harassment always gets a bad image out there, and a lot of the facts and what you can do to protect yourself is not put out there. It's brushed underneath the rug, and a lot of drivers don't know what their rights are and what they should do, and they're normally coerced into being quiet and dealing with things because it's trucking. You have to put up with it because it's trucking. You're a woman in a man's world. It's trucking. So
no, I get it. Yeah, it couldn't be more wrong. Just as a start, you have to understand the definition of assault. And people, first off, people watch too many movies from the 70s, from the lot lizards walking around the truck stop soliciting men. And unfortunately, a lot of men stayed stuck in that mode. And that's why a lot of female drivers, especially new drivers, don't get the attention they need during these complaint scenarios because society thinks that's kind of normal, But please understand, and now this is a police officer and me talking.
Go ahead.
You have to understand the definition of assault. The definition of assault is I touched you and you did not want to be touched. Period. Doesn't matter. I mean, now when there are degrees, there's sexual assault, of course, there's aggravated assault where there's bruises, damage, cuts, things like that. But me simply putting my hand on you anywhere on your body is assault. And in any jurisdiction, that's at least a misdemeanor situation. And so first and foremost, call the police. Everybody's got a phone. Call the police. Hey, this guy and I got in an argument about our training schedule and he grabbed my arm. That's assault. That may not be sexual in nature, but it's still assault.
I'm going to take that. There's also another degree of assault that often gets overlooked. But I ran into this with an individual, a driver. If a driver is keeping you in the truck and they are refusing to allow you to exit, or they're blocking, that too is a degree of assault. So by them restricting your access, taking away your phone, those are also degrees of assault in the legal world.
Right. Well, and that borders, depending on the jurisdiction, it also borders into the kidnapping scenario or the coercion of movement, which that's an additional factor there. That's huge. More than anything, though, and I've talked to young females and older females that have been in the industry, even young males. And they were telling me about this harrowing scenario. And I'm like, why do you call the cops? And I didn't think about it because the company has you locked into calling safety or HR. And it's like the police don't exist anymore. And no, just because we're in the trucking industry, the police are very much existent and they're still there. And that should be your first call, not your last or none.
Yeah, I am going to actually put a scenario out there before we get going. This person, I love her dearly. This was a firsthand experience I had back in 2020. A young lady was raped as a driver, and the company the company did not do anything in the beginning. She got home and she ended up pressing charges
Right.
after the
Good.
fact, right? When she should have called at the scene, but she
Right.
was told not to. And then she suffered a lot of problems because the incident happened in her truck and they didn't change trucks. They didn't, do anything for her. And she was suffering a lot of mental issues driving and having panic attacks and PTSD from the event.
Right.
And so the first thing that she should have done was call the authorities, but it's not in a company's best interest or image for you to do that. And so they will try to sway you away from it as much as possible. But the facts are that needs to be your first call.
Absolutely. Yeah. The police still exist. I don't care what the company says. Especially don't care what the trainer says. But if you feel intimidated, coerced, anything, and then physically touched, especially, call the cops. Just be done. Stop the press. Right there.
Okay. Well, let's go ahead and I'll quit getting off topic here. Let's go ahead and talk about your firsthand observations that you've had over the years in your career.
Well, I was kind of shocked because I'd been in the industry since 1987, but it wasn't until 2009 that I witnessed this the first time because I'd never been in a training environment with both males and females. And I went to work for CR England. They're a big company out in Salt Lake. Kind of shocked me when I went to their place and they had armed guards and bulletproof glass. And I'm like, yeah,
really?
inside their complex. Yes. And of course, me being an ex-cop, I'm looking at these guys in black SWAT fatigues and 9mm on their hip. What are you here for? Well, drivers get out of hand. And in fact, there've been so many issues with the company that in order to see someone from safety, recruiting, HR, whatever, even your dispatcher, you had to go through a metal detector and lose the pair of nail clippers and your keys in your pocket while you went in to visit them. Oh, yeah.
Oh, wow. So, every company I've ever worked for had an open door policy. So
exactly.
I didn't see that.
It blew my mind. I worked heavy security in the Air Force, nuclear weapons, aircraft. So I understand big time physical security. I'd never seen it like that at a trucking company. Anyway, long story short, there was a young lady in my orientation class, tall girl from Southern California, nice girl. And I kind of took her and a couple other people under my wing because they were brand new out of the CR England driving school. She had gone down to their school down in Riverside or wherever it is down there, and then attended orientation at Salt Lake. Well, of course, the only trainer they had available for her was a man, a 45-ish year old man. And there were no females available. So she's asking me what to do. And I kind of gave her bad advice. And I felt really guilty about that after the fact. I was like, well, just go out there, and you tell them like my sister would, you be on your best behavior. I'll throw you out of the truck while it's moving, that kind of thing. And I figured things would go fine. Well, a few days into it, Shannon called me and said that the guy went to wake her up for her shift, had pulled into a truck stop, and he exposed himself to her. And basically, this was 2 or 3 days in. They were getting along wonderfully up to this point. This is a typical narcissistic scenario. She just really liked this guy. He was sharp. He was on the money as far as teaching her everything. Everything was great up until that point, 3 or 4 days in. He exposed himself to her and explained that if she would give him favors, that he would rush her through training and give her 100% grade, and she'd look great to the company.
She
And
would
then
be
all he had,
qualified. She wouldn't have the education she needed, but he'd
exactly.
benefit.
He's going to shortcut her training because once a day was the requirement, was the suggestion. Once a day, she pleases him and everything goes smooth. Well, of course, everything changed. She got freaked out. She withdrew. She refused to be close to him. The conversation stopped. It got ugly. About a week later, it culminated. My wife and I were working for them, and we ran their pods accounts. We had a flatbed with the pod structures on it.
Yeah.
And we happened to be dropping our flatbed in Phoenix at the drop yard there because we had a weekend off. Pods has an interesting schedule. I got a call from Shannon, and it ends up she and her trainer were in that same parking lot at Phoenix. There were like 600 trailers there. It's a big drop yard, huge drop yard. She goes, I don't know what to do. He hit me. He threw me out of the truck. So she fell from the truck onto the ground. You know how tall a truck is.
Yeah.
And she's on the ground with her phone, and the sheriff's department is on their way because she threatened to call the cops, which good for her, but gosh, should have done it a while back, but good for her. And the guy came up with a story that she wasn't a driver at all. She was a lot lizard that he picked up at the Flying J and was taking her to Texas.
Yeah. Oh, the level of disrespect there.
So, of course, the cops show up, and he tells this female and this male deputy, because I pulled up, I was there in the yard. I'm walking up as they first contacted her, and they treated her like you would think someone would treat a violent, drug-addicted lot lizard. Okay? And they cuffed her and the stuff, put her in the car and all that. She's freaking out. She's just a nice girl. And I'm like, I'm melting down. So I pulled a female deputy off to the side, and I kind of went drill sergeant on her. And I said, I don't know what that guy has told you, but he's sexually assaulted her. He's harassed her. He intimidated her with demands of sex for good training. That girl is not a prostitute. She is a driver for this company. And I guarantee if you look at her identification, it's a Class A CDL. She's got a ComData fuel card in there. She's got a Pilot TA and Love's loyalty card in there. I guarantee it. And check that out before you go any further. And the lady looked at me kind of funny. I said, I swear to God, I know her. I was just in orientation with her not even a month ago. So they went over there, he got her purse, and I'm at the back of this police car, sheriff's deputy car, with his female deputy, pulled out Shannon's wallet, and surely enough, there's a California CDL, there's a ComData card for the company, and of course the Pilot and TA card and all this stuff. And she goes, why would a hooker have this stuff? Did she steal it? I'm like, I kind of went off. I'm like, look at the ID. It's her. It's a blonde, tall girl that's like 6 foot tall.
She's not a hooker.
Yeah. So she goes, oh, wow. So they pulled her out of the car and uncuffed her. And my wife and I are trying to console this girl. She's, of course, lost her doggone mind at this point. And I don't blame her. But the story reverted. And luckily, that gentleman was arrested and charged, and the company terminated him. But in looking into it a week or so later, when I was back at the terminal, they had never once had a complaint on him and had no reason to fire him other than that.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is so did they fire him or no?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, he got arrested for assault because he hit her in the face and shoved her out of the truck, and she fell. I mean, she's a tall girl, but she fell from the passenger side all the way to the ground onto the gravel.
She's lucky she didn't have any severe injuries.
Right. Exactly.
That is crazy.
Yeah.
And that was at Sierra, England?
Yes. 2009.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Woo. Yeah. So was that was your introduction to the harassment in the industry? That was one heck of an intro, let me tell you.
It was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, then of course, I don't want to get ahead, but 5 years later, I'm a terminal manager at CRST in Oklahoma City. And I was managing a terminal, and I had about 900 drivers that were assigned to our terminal. And every week we had a whole new flock of newbies that came in, and we also did the trainer course there, so we put our trainees with the trainers, and in theory it should work pretty well, but we had our issues there as well.
So, what were the issues that you had there?
Well, the biggest one kind of shocked me. This young guy, he was from Texas, and I guess because I'm from Texas, he thought we were buddies. I'd seen him in there. He was a trainer, and I had seen his trainee, this young red-haired girl, pretty girl. Not that that matters, but she was fairly attractive. And she had just been in my orientation class, and she was quiet, and she never asked any questions, which I always want them to ask questions, but whatever. Never had any issues with her. And then because he was really the only trainer available at the time, he got her. And about a week and a half later, he came into my office, shut the door. I'm like, oh my gosh, what did he do? Or what did she do? And the story he told me kind of curled my hair. And I don't mean a joke by that, but he said, I got a problem. I want to know how to handle it. Okay, lay it on me. From the first day on with this young lady in training, she wanted to sleep with the curtain open so she could look out and see and hear and understand. And she would sleep on top of the covers fully naked. I'm like, stop right there. Why did you allow that for 10 seconds?
I could say, how long did it go on before he reported it?
A week and a half. But the interesting part of it is that, so what'd you do? He goes, I told her to put clothes on. Did she? Nope. Did she close curtains? No. Did you stop and close the curtains? No. So then what happened? Well, after about 2 days of this, I'm a man, and we got to talking, and we started having relations, which of course is against company policy. You're not supposed to ever do that. Ever. Right. I get that. I'm like, okay. So consensual. I mean, thank God he didn't rape her, or vice versa, whatever. Right. But still, that's a no-go in the industry. I said, okay, well, I don't really know what to advise you, but let me think on this a while. This was Friday at 3:30 in the afternoon, and I called the head of our HR in Cedar Rapids, and I said, here's a scenario. She goes, okay, call the police, escort them off the property. They're both fired. Okay, well, I understand firing them because they both violated company policy. 100%, I get it. But my question was, how do I, as a terminal manager, prevent things like this from ever happening? What if she wasn't so forward? What if they didn't decide to have a consensual relationship? It was a weird scenario all the way around, but
yeah, what if she decided to lay like that and somebody pushed it and didn't take no for an answer that she wasn't attracted to, Yeah,
exactly. And it just, I mean, in one way, thank goodness it was consensual, but doggone, I was in shock. So,
but also, you're married, right?
Yeah,
so how would your wife feel about it if you were driving that truck and you had a trainee that was naked in the bunk,
Yeah. No, it would stop. It would stop 2 seconds in. I'm like, what are you doing? They said, okay, we're going back. It just, I don't
that's
know.
not the first time I've heard that.
Yeah. It was the first time for me. This is 2014. I'm like, I was shaking my head. I'm like, man, what is this industry doing?
So both were fired, and with a degree in HR, well, HR's their job is to protect the company from liability, and that right there was one heck of a liability.
Exactly.
So, what was the policies moving forward then?
No change.
As far as that was, no change.
Well, with me personally, I told a story in every orientation class after that and said, I'm going to throw you physically off the property. You don't do this stupid stuff. This is not what we're here for. We're here to train drivers and have careers. You want to
sleep with clothes on.
Yeah. You want to hook up, go to the club. That's you. Speaking of the club, after she got fired, she filed a complaint against me, which I was in orientation with her. I saw her. I talked to her. I mean, I talked to her like everybody else, but we never had a one-on-one conversation at all. And then she said, I hit on her at some club downtown. I didn't go to clubs downtown. So, and if I did, it was with my wife. So no, it didn't happen. But I knew what that was. That was that lifeline. That was that last chance to not get in trouble, because it might end up on your DAC, on your high right report. Uh, I doubt it, but who knows? Yeah, interesting.
Wow. So yeah, so you're getting quite the education.
Yeah, I
Being
was.
the
Well, it was only a few months later I left the position. I'm like, I'm going back to driving. I'm going to
it's
get
a
a
lot of pressure.
flatbed. I'm going to get a step deck. I love hauling equipment, and I'm going to go throw some chains and have a good time and just do my thing. And I did. Yeah.
Yeah. And how long did that last before you were back in the office?
I haven't been back in the office since, but 3.5 years ago, I got this opportunity, because what I started doing, and I was doing all along since 2008, I was working these commercial vehicle crash scenarios on defense and plaintiffs, but only doing 10 or 12, maybe 15 a year.
Right.
Um, but 3.5, almost 4 years ago, I was approached through LinkedIn by a recruiter, and Evidence Solutions that I work for was looking for an additional trucking person, because we had the one guy, John, great guy, but he was getting inundated with cases and they needed somebody to take slack. So went through the interview process, and I jumped in and I hit the ground running. I've done over 500 cases in 3.5 years. It's been crazy. I did 252 this year alone. It's crazy. But so I'm back in the office, but I work from home in Avery, Texas, and I can look out and see my donkeys and my goats and my
Oh,
I got Highland cows and 4 obnoxious dogs, and yeah, so it's a
well,
good time.
I live in town, but I have a shed in my backyard, and
Cool.
I thought I had like a cat. The dog was going crazy. There's a red fox
Oh
hanging out
wow,
next to
those are
my
cool.
shed. Yeah, so it came out Christmas Eve morning, so I don't know if it had babies or what underneath there, but I have a little bit of wildlife just right here in town.
Heck
So,
yeah.
with your experience as a trainer, safety, being the terminal manager, what are the most frequent instances of sexual harassment and sexual assault that you see most? What's the most common types?
Just the pay for play, or play for pay, however you want to look at it. Um, basically the same situation with Shannon at CR England, where a male trainer or a lesbian female trainer approaches as a heterosexual female and says, look, if you take care of me at least once a day, I'm going to take care of you. And instead of 30 days of training, I'll get you out in 15, and you can get to working with your new crew and making the good money and all that. Won't life be grand at that point?
So
And
the majority of it. Oh, go ahead. Sorry.
no, that's what I see. That's what I'm saying.
So the majority of them are the trainer trainee scenarios and team driving, because I know
Yes.
some of those companies, they establish and help you find a teammate, or they have a matching system.
Well, it's funny, when back in 2008, when I started driving, I'd had a CDL, for 20 years, but my wife went through truck driving school in Norristown, Pennsylvania. We lived in Pennsylvania at the time. And she wasn't going to come along with me to work for about 2 months at the time I joined Covenant, because the law firm fell apart. I needed a job. I was driving locally, didn't like it, so I went with a bigger company. Covenant's matching program was whether you smoked or not. That was it.
Wow.
If you smoked, you were with a smoker. If you didn't smoke, you were with a non-smoker. Doesn't matter where you're from, what you do. And it's like, heck, we were married and almost got divorced 87 times, just driving over the road. I can't imagine driving with someone I don't even know or didn't know
Yeah.
until last week, that kind of scenario. So you're taking
Oh, I
two
know.
perfect strangers. Well, you're taking two perfect strangers and putting them in a box and running them down the road 24/7. And you've got all those restrictions that people outside the trucking industry don't even conceptualize. They think of sexual harassment as some guy hitting on a lady in an office, and yeah, but what if that guy and that lady were stuck in a place the size of a phone booth going cross country,
And that's a good point, because that team driving and the training model contributes a lot to that vulnerability.
It does.
And it's not just women. I mean, it's especially women, but men are subject to it as well.
Right.
What other factors
Well,
contribute to it?
you have to change clothes in proximity with someone else. You have to do personal hygiene. You want to grab a shower. I've never been a caveman, and I'm not going to go off on that subject, but I showered every day. I had a hot meal every day. That was mandatory for me in the trucking industry. A lot of people
Yep.
don't believe that. Well,
That and
maybe you're,
coffee in the morning. My
yeah.
trainers will tell you,
No,
don't if you're driving at night, make sure you switch where Tammy has coffee in the morning.
yeah. Well, I don't drink coffee. I never smoked. I'm just weird that way, I guess. It's a Diet Coke or Diet Dr. Pepper thing. But sometimes you take the man wipes or the lady wipes or whatever, and you're changing clothes. You just want to feel a little fresher. But the problem is you're becoming half clothed in the sleeper, and if the other person stops, there's that vulnerable time where you're not fully clothed. You're barely fully awake, and then
Yeah.
then you're trying to change clothes and get ready for your shift. And those times especially, I think, are the most vulnerable for people.
Yeah, they are. And vulnerability, I mean, when you have a trainee and a trainer, I mean, there's also power at play with that as well.
I've seen that power turn into horrible things, and the sexual assault, sexual harassment, absolutely. But I've also seen where so this is CR England, one of the young men that went through orientation with me, called me up a couple of weeks later and said, "Hey man, did they deduct anything from your com data card?" I'm like, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "Well, I've got like $500-600 missing from a com data card. I'm getting paid on my card." Well, first off, don't do that, number one. But if you're going to do that, keep track of it. His trainer convinced him that they were going to have to work on each other's clocks, and you're going to have to drive some on mine and I'm going to have to drive some on yours, which means that you're going to have to fuel on my time and I might have to fuel on your time. So I need your com data card so I can use it to swipe if I'm driving on your time. Yeah. So what the guy was doing was he's using the young guy's card to get fuel and getting himself a cash advance. Yeah,
So
he's got his card.
He's stealing.
Yeah, yeah, and you just go into either ComCheck or a regular cash advance. You can do it right there at the pump. Well, he was filtering money off this guy's card, and who knows how long that had been going on. So there's other things out there that are, yeah. As the big brother dad scenario, I just really want to try to protect people.
That's crazy. So when these situations happened in your experience, what did the companies that you worked at, what was the role? What did they do? How'd they take care of it?
That was especially frustrating. They did.
It's still frustrating today.
It is still frustrating today, and I have been a terminal manager for 11 years. They fire the trainee immediately, send them home.
Really? Why? Why the trainee? Why would the trainee who is abused being fired?
Well, they don't want the liability. They don't want that. They don't want that person hanging around a terminal somewhere telling their story. Number one, they surely don't want to talk to the cops while they're still an employee. Get rid of them. Get them on a bus. And I'm not talking about going back to Salt Lake or Cedar Rapids or wherever and coming up. No, I'm talking about get that person off that truck right now to the nearest bus station and send them home. And then I asked why. Well, it's a matter of subsidies. Okay. So that slot is gone now. Okay. That person, that guy or girl came in and the company got a large subsidy for training that person. And they got it whether you stayed there a week or 6 months or a year. They got that subsidy.
Yeah, there's no retention with it. I think there should be.
Right.
I think there should
Right.
be.
Oh, I agree. I agree.
Percentage.
Yeah, you should have to retain people for a certain period of time before you get that subsidy as a trucking. Doesn't. They get it. They ought to. As soon as they report it to the Department of Labor, they get a subsidy. Now, if that guy or girl blows out in a week, they still get the subsidy. And guess what? There's 10 people in line behind that person that's going to take their place. So they're going to get another subsidy. So it doesn't matter. There's no motivation whatsoever to protect that guy or girl from these situations because they can blow them out, avoid liability, and all it costs them is a bus ticket. And most bus tickets are under $200.
Wow. So no services to the victim, no counseling, no therapy, bye. See you later.
The other side of that, no discipline for the trainer, no charging the trainer, no firing the trainer, because they just, at that point, they've kind of got that plausible deniability that, well, we didn't investigate it because we just thought it was wrong and they were incorrect. And, we don't need a troublemaker like that in our fleet. So we sent them home. Well, now the trainer, be it a male or female, never gets a mark against them. Just like this guy at CR England, they'd never had a complaint. You cannot tell me for a second that was the first young lady he'd approached like that. No. He'd been there 6 years.
Yeah, no.
No way.
It's just nobody had made waves or it hadn't escalated to that level yet.
Well, but it's like having an Uber driver that's a serial rapist and he keeps getting female passengers. I mean, it just enables them, especially when as a company, you don't take any responsibility and do anything about it.
Right. So, over the years with these companies, what policies have they implemented that you've seen to help, deal with sexual harassment and assault in the workplace and make it a safer environment?
I'm not one of those people that throw my hands up. They're not trying at all. Sure. I'm sure they bolster their sexual harassment speech and orientation.
CBTs.
Absolutely. Yeah. Oh yeah. Here, watch this computer film, while you're playing card game on your phone, watch this computer film, or it could be a live class with a live person teaching it. But if you as a company don't ever enforce any of your policies that you preach about in orientation, it's pretty much worthless. And that's exactly what's happening. And in those companies that we talked about, I still have friends there. And I ask, what has changed, And a couple of people at CRST and people at Frymiller, where I worked later in 2017 for a while, went into the office, tried the office, didn't work. I was again shocked. But the thing is that my friends that are there said nothing has changed. Why would we change? In fact, that company in Oklahoma City has actually decreased their hiring standards and lowered them. And they've seen an exponential change in literal criminals in their driving fleet.
And so what's the company, what are they prioritizing if they're not prioritizing their drivers?
The bottom line.
Freight. Yeah. So because the freight matters more than the people behind the wheel.
Right. And they always have. And, and I'm not a victim and I'm not the woe is me kind of person, but, we get treated like cattle out there, and the sooner you realize that, the sooner it's not going to make you mad anymore. And
right.
You're going to wait 8 hours
with the shipper.
Yeah, just come to terms with it. But yeah, there's no respect. But then again, you know what? A lot of drivers perpetuate that, because I've talked to shipping clerks when I started a freight brokerage back in 2009, 2010, and I'm talking to all these shipping clerks in all these places. And I would get off on the conversation of, so how do drivers act when they come in here? And she goes, oh, well, 6 out of 10 are great. They got their ducks in a row. They got their stuff written down. They got a pickup number. They know exactly what they got, where they're going, blah, 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 blah. 2 or 3 of those are completely lost. And 1 is psychotic. And it's like, so every 10 drivers are dealing with a psychopath, it seems like. And how many drivers come in and out of your typical shipper or receiver? There's a couple hundred a day probably. But unfortunately, we perpetuate that as drivers by allowing that behavior as well. You go in there and lose your mind and curse some lady or some guy out in the shipping office, how are they going to treat the next person? They're not going to treat them well, because they just got screamed at and called every name in the book, and they figure, well, I'm not going to treat this lady or this guy any different because they're not going to be nice to me. Why should I? It is what it is.
It is. And, when I'm not out on the road anymore, but when I was out on the road, I always, you walk in and they just have that look like, hey, I've dealt with a lot of crappy people today.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
Like, good morning, good afternoon. Just let me know.
Yeah.
I'm getting paid either way.
I have to throw this out there. And if this helps drivers that are listening to your podcast, I really hope so. Something I started doing at CRST. I said 2 things. First and foremost, I apologize to the shipping club. And everybody looked at me kind of squirrely. Why? I said, on behalf of me And the other wholesome drivers who are out there, I want to apologize for whatever you've experienced today from our lesser wholesome brothers and sisters. Because I know somebody
Exactly.
came in here and lost their mind on you and acted a fool.
Or
I'm not going
stunk.
to do that, and I really apologize. The second thing, there's always a Coke machine and a snack machine, right? When you check in or whatever. Say, hey, I'm going to get a Dr. Pepper. You want one? I guarantee you're going to be the first person that day that asks if you could buy them a Coke.
Yep, absolutely.
And those little
Absolutely.
things just made the difference. Anyway.
Yeah. You're how you treat people out here makes a difference, So getting back to our topic, I know it's really easy to get off track on my podcast and we just ramble. It is what it is. But
I'm ADHD, so yeah.
I do want to give the listeners some good information today
Absolutely.
About this. So what changes do you think companies can make about their training programs or just policies in general moving forward?
I don't have a lot of confidence that anything is really going to change, first and foremost. And I know that's a pretty horrible statement to make, but it is. But here's the deal. I absolutely despise corporate speak and politically correct language. And we cloak ourselves in corporate speak and politically correct language because people are too scared to say what really happens, what really should happen, what really shouldn't happen, and who's at fault. Okay. And I learned this from being a cop first in the military and dealing with crimes, actual hardcore sexual assaults, physical assaults, aggravated assault, things like that. Patterns start emerging. You got to recognize a pattern. You got to rip the Band-Aid off and be honest with yourself. And until we pass the corporate speak and that shell game that we play to try to not talk about stuff, you've got, the only way this is going to change is if we talk about it. Okay. I would say that a female trainee with a male heterosexual trainer has a better chance than average of being sexually assaulted or sexually harassed than, for instance, a gay male trainer. It is what it is. And just looking at just like the polarity in magnets,
Yeah.
I would.
But we can't like cherry pick. Hey, I want a gay trainer because then that's
I get it.
That's a lawsuit right there.
Right, but here's a catch too. If you're getting a complaint on a particular trainer, listen to it. Take them out of training. I'm not saying shoot them in the head and throw them down the road, but take them out of their training position to where you don't risk them harming or assaulting or traumatizing other people. Okay. Because it is what it is. And I had a couple of instances at CRST where I had females who harassed other females. And I had one lady actually joke with me about converting this girl to the other side. And she was proud of it. And, she was going to have her pitching for the softball team. And that was like, and I said, we're just not two truckers sitting in the Flying J having breakfast talking here, right? I'm the terminal manager here. And you're telling me that you're attempting to take a female heterosexual girl and convert her to lesbianism because that's what you personally want to do. You didn't mention a thing about training that.
That was her trainee, right?
Yeah. I said, you didn't mention a thing about taking a new driver and training them to be a good driver. Your mission was of a sexual nature, and that's not cool. And I'm going to need to talk to you about that in a minute. And I asked her to step out, and I called HR, and we fired her. Because that can't happen. That simply cannot happen.
And I think that's a huge misconception out in the world right now, because you see a lot of women who are going through school and they're looking for their training company. And a lot of things I see on the message boards is, waiting for a woman trainer, want a woman. And I don't think they realize that the assault happens with females.
Exactly. Well, and it's only like 7 or 8% of females that are in the industry. So the factor of having a female trainer at a particular company is going to be exceptionally rare. It's just numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
It's like winning the lottery. 1 in 3 million means you're not going to win.
But having a woman doesn't necessarily mean that you won't face sexual harassment or assault.
Exactly, exactly. But there's got to be other ways to do this, and I really think there is. For instance, get your CDL through a family member, through an acquaintance, somebody that somebody your family or friends know. Um, you know, there's got to be somebody in a company that yeah, this guy works for whatever company out of Mississippi, and he's a trainer. Great. You know,
Yeah.
I mean, when you've got that family connection or friends connection, there's social norms there that you'll likely adhere to that you wouldn't adhere to with a stranger. That's just kind of a
Well,
fact.
yeah,
In theory.
in theory, yes. I did know a young woman. She was married. Her husband was a truck driver, and she was at that stage where she was giving up her career, getting her CDL, and joining him. So she had to go to a school, then she had to go through a training program before she could be with him.
Right.
While she was going through that, she was raped by a gentleman that her and her husband had befriended.
Oh man.
And so that was it's sometimes it's the people
Yeah. No,
I
I
always
get
tell
that.
women, don't ever let anybody in your truck. I don't care if they want to fix your GPS. I don't care what their excuse is. Never let someone get in your truck with you.
Absolutely not. And I don't know that the trucking schools even cover that. That's one of those things you learn along the way that everybody should know.
Yeah. Yeah.
But,
That's why we do these podcasts, because there's lots of things that the schools and the trucking companies don't go over that, you need. It's road etiquette, the do's and
right.
don'ts.
Well,
So you
that's
get
just it. In my side of the industry, on the compliance side, I've had trucking company owners. There was one in Boston last year, Boston, Massachusetts. Guy had a mishap at a loading dock, and the guy on the forklift fell out of the truck because he took off with the guy still in the truck. Right. And the lady who owned the company said, I thought they learned all that stuff in truck driving school. And I just about laughed out loud in the middle of a courtroom. I'm like, they teach you how to do a really good pre-trip. They teach you how to back up in a straight line, and they teach you how to go around the block. And you pass the test. That's all they teach you. If you get any more than that, that's fantastic, but it's not common. That company who is supposed to train on 383, 111, which is all those training areas, the 20 training areas, they're supposed to take the reins from there and train you. Unfortunately, it doesn't happen.
No, it doesn't. So what do we think is the right way to do this? Is same gender training the answer? Should there be more women? Well, we have to get more women drivers before we can have more women trainers, right?
Right.
What about the in-cab cameras that all the companies are coming out with now? Are those beneficial?
I think they are. I really do. Trust me when I say this. If I had a 600 truck fleet and I was training new drivers, I would pay a lady like you $150,000 a year to come train my people. Because, why should a female, an experienced female driver, 35, 40, 45 years old, whatever her age is, want to put up with the trainee environment and risk their lives with a brand new driver for the same level of money and maybe 5 or 10% more that everybody else gets? I can't see it. I would be so targeted in that area. I would love to have female drivers, because the female driving friends that I've got, that I've made over the years, they'll run circles around most guys and not complain in the meantime.
Right.
Now, there have been some that have been pretty soft, and I mean soft is not tough, but the 3 or 4 ladies that come to mind immediately that I keep in touch with today, they're rock solid. And I would want people like that training my people, males or females. But I think having quite a few female trainers set up, making good money, and running on duty, not driving only.
Yep.
And
Eliminate
no
team driving. Yep. No team
Team
driving
driving.
mentality whatsoever. When
Okay.
they're ready to
Because,
graduate, send them on their way. Bye.
yeah, if you want to go to Swift
Hello.
and team drive, that's up to you. No offense to Swift,
Yep.
but that's what they do. Here's the catch. All of these training schools are double dipping. They're getting the subsidies for taking on that trainee, for one. Then they're running normal freight at normal pay rates. Like Sierra England's mostly refrigerated. Refrigerated freight pays more than dry freight. It is what it is. But the point being that, 100% of the training schools are double dipping. They're getting the subsidies for taking on that trainee, for one. Then they're running normal freight at normal pay rates. Like Sierra England's mostly refrigerated. Refrigerated freight pays more than dry freight. It is what it is. But the point being that they're double dipping because they're paying their trainer whatever. They're paying the trainee. When my wife was my trainee at Sierra English, she got 11 cents a mile. Now that was
Ooh.
2009. Okay, that was a few years ago. I get it, but that's not that long ago.
I think most of
11
them
cents a
just
mile.
do. I don't think they pay by the mile very much anymore for that. I
Yeah.
think they just pay like a weekly
Yeah, it's like
allowance
five or
type.
600 bucks.
Yeah.
By the time you feed yourself for a week and do laundry,
Yep.
you got 300 bucks left. You know, but so pay the trainers what you need to pay them. I
Yep.
guarantee I'd have people knocking down the door to want to come train for me and want to come learn from us without a doubt. We should open our own company because
We
we
should.
could do
We
this.
should.
We could do this on the side. But
Well,
the
and
thing is,
I think that if we eliminate all the time in the truck, like the
yeah,
team driving, and we park the truck at night and we do the hotel or
yeah,
one person in the hotel and do a little bit of separation, that will
absolutely.
relieve some of that shower time, changing time as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, you're not spending all the time together. You could still do like a super single, I mean super solo. You could run 16 or 18 hours in a day and
Yeah.
still get good breaks and get some stuff done. But again, these companies are double dipping. They're not only getting money from the government for training subsidies, they're running freight and not paying their people worth a darn. And every shipper out there knows that these companies will team drive everything,
Yep.
you
Yep.
know.
They do. They do.
And so
So
they get it there cheaper, they get it there quicker.
yeah, yeah, they do. So what advice should we give new women entering our industry?
With all the negative stuff that I've thrown out there, and I know I've thrown out a lot, don't be discouraged
Oh no,
because
it's a great industry. It's a
well,
great
it is
industry.
if you do it right, you know. But getting past that initial six months, and getting on your own and doing your thing, my friend Megan, she runs for a company out of Ohio now, and she runs 3,000 miles a week. She gets 2 days off a week. They do triangles, basically Michigan, Texas, Florida, and back. Sometimes Ohio, sometimes Illinois, but they run really good, and she's used to it. They run hard, but you get 2 full days off every week, and she can plan and do stuff and have real vacations. She's been with them like 9 or 10 years now. But the point is, when you reach that level, you're in a really good position. It's
Right.
just getting there that's tough. And unfortunately, there are companies out there and trainers out there that want to take advantage of you. Um,
Right.
so you have to fight that. Now, me personally, if I had a granddaughter that I've got a 21-year-old granddaughter, if she wanted to be a truck driver, it's okay. Go to a community college near you. Don't go to this company and get the training. Go to the community college because you're home. You're in an environment with instructors, things like that. And then get a job with a local company or a regional company that will take you on initially and train during the day, because
Yep.
there are companies that will do that.
Yes,
These are
there are.
not
There are.
as much as I respect Werner, as much as I respect Schneider, things like that, for what they're doing on that grand scale, there are alternatives out there for somebody. And
There are. There are.
especially, we just don't have that many women trying to go in the industry. I guarantee they can get a job at some regional company, and go through a training program for 30 or 60 days and then run. And they probably would want to stay doing the local regional thing because that's a great thing. But
Yeah,
there are ways around it.
I saw a TikTok the other day, and I don't remember her name, but it was a new driver. She just finished CDL school, and she got hired at Gemini calling for love. So she was going to get trained straight out of school, and I had never heard that before. And I
That's
thought, wow, that's
fantastic.
amazing. Yeah. Now I do
Well, yeah,
know there's propane companies that will hire you straight out of school and train you on the job.
exactly. Well,
If you,
Love's Gemini would be great because I mean they have a distribution part where they use dry vans for some of their store stock, but primarily their fuel. So you
yeah,
got a hazmat tanker scenario. You're going to be getting paid great because of what it is,
and you're
and all
home
you're
every
doing.
night, I believe.
Yeah, you are. Yeah, you work some weird schedules probably, but that's the nature of the business. But yeah, you're home every day.
Yeah.
That'd be a great scenario.
So new drivers entering CDL school, looking forward to, as far as the topic with sexual assault and harassment. I mean, basically, we want to make sure we research the companies we're going to.
Right.
And Google, and yeah, there's a lot of information out there about companies and lawsuits that they've settled,
Exactly.
and
Yes.
sexual abuse, what they do, how they're set up, and a lot of drivers out there who will give you their experience.
Well, and the trucking forums and things like that. I think probably the number one thing that nobody really thinks about though is if I knew a young man or a young woman that were going off to this trucking school or whatever, first and foremost, be assertive. You can be assertive without being a jerk. You can be assertive without being labeled a troublemaker. But if I were a young female that was 21, 22 and getting my license, I would look them dead in the eye and say, I swear to God, if you touch me, I've got a granddad that shoots really well, or my big brother's going to whoop you, or, set all that aside. Assault is touching me when I don't like it, and I'm going to call the police.
Yep.
Be assertive.
My first deer was a 10-point buck, so I have really good aim.
Yeah, exactly.
Myself, don't need granddaddy.
Yeah, well, exactly. But it's like, I can't imagine if I ever got that call from my granddaughter Aubrey. I'd be in the truck.
Right. So, what red flags do you think they should look out for then?
Narcissistic behavior, number one. When someone is being too nice, and that's why when I train drivers, I was kind of a jerk about it. I'm going to tell you straight up, I'm not here to be your friend. I don't need any more friends.
My best trainer was that trained me.
I'm not here to be your friend. I served a long time in the military. I got friends from high school I still talk to. We get along great. I don't even really like people. My point is, this is a job. I'm going to show you. Trust me. If you scare me, you're going to know that you scared me, and I'm going to tell you that. Okay. But I'm not here to be your buddy. But when someone is being that syrupy sweet and giving you compliments, and think about that. I don't care whether you're inside a Kenworth or inside a nightclub. The same scenario applies. That narcissistic guy, he wants that feeling of security and acknowledgement from that young female. Hey, you look good. Oh, I like your hair. Those jeans look great on you. Those are wholly inappropriate, completely inappropriate. If you're getting comments like that, that is just a precursor, I believe, for what's to come.
Yeah. But on the flip side, there are nice people out there. So not every compliment is a guy who's going to sexually harass you or abuse you. And I've seen this transpire too, where, somebody says hi to you or is nice to you and they're like, oh, he's going to try and rape me. Well, no, there's a lot of great guys out here. But,
and in the South especially, we're just taught to be respectful to ladies.
Yeah,
yeah. Long story short,
but if he looks at you like a pork chop, and us girls know, we know, and when he's looking you up and down, we know the look.
Do something about it. But that whole sir and ma'am thing goes a long way, But at the same time, people who are not from the South, when they're spoken to that way, they wonder what your motivation is. It's not motivation. It's just the way we're raised,
Yeah. Yep. So women get out here, they're out with trainers, they're working with men in the field, they're experiencing some harassment, okay, or they've been abused. What do they need to document? How should they handle it? Being a terminal manager, and law enforcement, that certain details are very important. So what are those details and what should these girls do if they get in a situation?
I love technology. And I would tell you this if you got in a crash with a car or truck or whatever, just as if you were being sexually harassed or possibly sexually assaulted. Everybody's got a smartphone.
Yep.
Turn it on to video. Turn it on to video and stick it in your pocket.
Okay.
It may be a little muffled, but they're not going to see it. And you record the whole conversation. And, people say, well, you got to have permission to record. You know what? You watch too much TV. Stop all that. If it's a matter of preserving your own body and you're avoiding trauma and avoiding, any of these actions, record whatever you're going to record, because when you say, I want off this truck because this guy hit on me, and no, Jed's a nice guy. Really? Here, let me play this for you.
Right.
Yeah. And then he said something about what you could do for him. And if you do this for him, he'll do this for you. Man, they know right then that they're busted,
And that's something that should be reported. That is a
Well,
reportable comment coming
first
from a
and foremost,
trainer.
report it.
Yeah.
But that's your support. Just take it. I mean, especially younger folks, Gen Z, Gen X, they're all, everybody's tech savvy.
Yep.
I can have my video on in about a second and a half, and I'm 60. I'll be 62 next week. But yeah, I could flip this on and hit it, and you'd never know I was recording.
Okay. So on top of recording, when they have to fill out an incident report and you were safety, right? Terminal manager safety, you guys ask a lot of questions. You want a lot of details.
I do. I want all the details.
So what details are those? I mean,
Well,
because
is this the
I'm
first
at,
time this has happened?
this is what happened. And they're like, when? I don't know. I'm a truck driver.
Exactly. No,
Every day
it
is
was
the same.
it was at 9:58 on a Tuesday, and this, I want dates, times, everything. I couldn't believe the one when I interviewed these young ladies, because I did interview several young ladies after allegations like this at CRST especially. I said, was this the first time this guy said this? Oh no. He'd been leading up to it for about a week, but he didn't go for the money shot, if you know what I mean, until it had been about a week. He was asking, he goes, one girl had a trainer, said, you know what? The guy told her this. If we hold hands walking into the truck stop, they were on a 34-hour reset. If we hold hands walking into the truck stop, people will think we're married and nobody will harass you or me. He was pretending to be a victim while being a perpetrator. And then that becomes normal. And now they're holding hands when they're outside the truck. And then comes a kiss, and then comes whatever else.
So but here's the thing. So if she's holding hands and this kind of, then it looks consensual and it makes her look like she has less of a case.
Yes and no. As someone from the outside investigating, it would really depend on how it was presented to me. Because if she's saying, well, he said we should do this because, she didn't say, well, I liked the guy, so I held his hand. That's a different story.
But if you're a company that's not victim friendly,
right,
and and these people walk in and, well, she had been holding his hand a couple of days ago, so obviously there was something going on and she was okay with it. I can see that being said.
I could, sure.
Holding hands with anybody, unless that's your boo.
Well, now let's go back a few minutes. Even though you consented to holding his hand, walking into the Flying J for such a romantic date, by the way, that is assault.
Yes.
If you really didn't want to hold his hand, and it wasn't your will to hold his hand, and you weren't in complete agreement, but you did it because you thought this experienced older person said it'd be a good thing to do at the truck stop. I still don't. And I asked the young lady, why'd you think that? I don't care whether you're in the trucking world or you work at State Farm, we don't do that. And she goes, well, he seemed older and wiser, and he was my trainer, and I believed him. Okay.
Yeah.
Well, and that's just it. But document when that happened.
Yes.
And why and how.
Okay.
Because I would find that really unusual, as most people would.
What is the line between what you report to the company and when you pick up the phone and call 911?
That's really a judgment call, and any time where you call the police instead of the company is when you need an immediate termination of whatever's going on. I've seen arguments ensue between trainers where I'm going to kick you out of the next truck stop. If you don't do this, I'm going to beat you up. All you needed to do is just keep your mouth shut, and this would go great, and you'd be out of here in a week and a half. You're being intimidated. Okay. No matter how tough we all want to feel, there's a point where you realize that other person is completely wrong, and you want to stop that action. That's when you call the cops, because you don't owe your safety department or your HR or your recruiter anything. We're talking about your personal safety, your body, your own brain for the next however long it is. If you experience something traumatic, you've got to deal with that. And I don't want to see that. It stops now. Call the cops. Worst case scenario, you leave the company and you go somewhere else to train. Worst case scenario.
Yeah.
You
So
know,
anytime you feel in danger, or obviously if a line was crossed, that
right.
you need to call the authorities before you call your company, and protect yourself.
Because and again, I don't know that I really want to go there because I don't want people freaking out about the trucking industry. But if we're on I-40 going across Arizona, New Mexico, West Texas, or whatever, I-10, I-20, and you've got a problem with someone, you're going to be hard to get a hold of. You're going to be
Yeah.
hard to reach by law enforcement, for one. If you're in a city, if you're near a truck stop, get out of the truck. Go in there, make a phone call. Tell a trainer, hey, I got to go to the bathroom, whatever. How are you going to argue with that? A rest area, whatever. Now, you'll get a quicker response in a city at a truck stop than you would at a rest area in the middle of nowhere. But
Right.
make that call. Leave the truck. Worst case scenario is you're wrong. But I really doubt you are, because these things happen.
They do.
And again, worst case scenario, you apologize. Hey, I was wrong about you. Sorry, but I'm going over here to train because I'm not taking this chance again.
Yeah. And, there's one thing, a piece of advice that I give every driver, male or female, when they are coming out into the trucking industry. Many things can happen, especially when you're just starting out. You mix different personalities, trainers. You might decide to team drive with a buddy that you met. Always make sure that you have emergency funds to get you an Uber, a hotel, a rental car, so that you
Yep.
are not stranded somewhere, because things happen. Maybe it's just you and you're just mad at the company because they're wanting you to do something that you shouldn't do or don't want to do.
Right.
No matter what the reason is, always cover your own rear,
Right.
have emergency fundings to take care of yourself if a situation arises. You may live in Illinois and something may happen in California and you need to get home. And
Right.
all a company is going to do is give you a bus ticket. And if you're a truck driver, we have more things in our trucks than fits on a bus.
Right. Well, with that in mind, though, as a trainee, you're in an advantage over the trainer and any established truck driver. You don't have much with you. You got a sleeping bag and maybe a suitcase or a big backpack full of stuff.
Yep.
Now, what I mean by that is you're tactical at that point. You can jump ship, and you don't. You know what? If it's a $30 sleeping bag you've had for 3 years, leave it there.
Yeah.
Get out of the truck. Grab your stuff. Get out of the truck. Take all your personals with you. Get out of the truck. Because a typical driver, I know I did. Heck, it would take you 3 or 4 hours to move into a truck and move out of a truck because you got stuff everywhere.
Yes.
But a trainee, and trainees don't understand this at that point because they're not established yet. But they don't have that disadvantage. They grab their backpack or suitcase and be out in a minute. Go in there, make the phone call, whatever. Go to the bathroom. Seriously. Bring up your Uber app, get an Uber, walk out to the front of the truck stop and go. You can justify it later. You can talk about it later.
Yeah. So I think that's some good advice. So do we see hope for change? I mean, regulation, our advocacy.
Well,
I fight for change every day. I mean,
I know we got some really good groups like women in trucking out there that are advocating for change. But until these driver trainers who are sexually harassing, sexually assaulting young women especially are prosecuted, there's no real motivation to change it because the companies have it made. They get the subsidy to get you in there. They get to let you run for next to nothing, their freight that they're getting full pop for, and they're paying you dimes on the dollar. They got it made. They don't have a reason to change. They don't have a reason. Okay. So what I'm saying is go around that scenario. Especially if you're a young female looking to drive, it's a cool career. It's fun. I've enjoyed it. I've been doing it a long time. Yeah. I think about it every day. I had dreams pulling into this particular truck stop, going to get my Arby's sandwich, taking my shower. And I've written 20 books while I've been out here, and I go to my room, I go to my truck and I pull the curtains and I bring up my laptop and go at it. And that was my sanctuary, absolutely. There is a good part of that. To get to that point is tough, like in any other career. But there's another way around it. The community college trucking schools, the personal friends, the uncle who owns the dump truck company. Go drive for your uncle for a second. Maybe it's not what you want to do, but you know what? When you go to
Yep.
apply at Old Dominion because you want to run for Old Dominion, and they see that you've driven a Class B or Class A CDL truck for 6 months with no issues and all of that, you've got experience at that point. You don't have to go through these companies.
Yeah. And if you do go through a mega carrier, a training company, make sure you research the ones you're looking at, because some
Absolutely.
are better than others,
They are for
Um,
sure. And and again, be assertive. Don't be timid. And I tell this, we were joking earlier. I sing karaoke. People will ask me, what song should I sing? Well, you've got kind of a mousy voice, and that means you don't have a lot of breast support, so you really can't put it out. You need to do something that's built for mousy voice people, and they get mad, and then they go want to sing Pat Benatar at the top of their lungs, which is cool, whatever. My point being, regardless of what your personality style is and how much of an introvert you are and how quiet you want to be, and you just want to hang out in the corner of the library, you have to protect yourself and you have to be assertive. And you get into that training scenario with a driver, say, look, I'm not going to put up with anything from you. I'm here to learn. I want to do my job. I'm going to do it as best as I can. Please help me do that. Show me what you know. Teach me the right stuff to do and build on what I've already learned. I realize I don't know it all yet. I want to know it all, but I got to get there. But I swear to goodness, if you do something stupid, might as well bring it,
And if you get into a situation where you're uncomfortable, don't be afraid to reach out to the company and request a different trainer.
Right.
I mean, it's that I had two. I mean, and it wasn't because of sexual. My trainer was just doing illegal things, but
I get it. Well, see, but I've seen that
okay.
I've seen that with CRST. I was up in Cedar Rapids several times for training courses, and I'd be walking through there, and guy'd get off the phone, a girl get off the phone, go, oh my God, this trainee wants another trainer again. Really? That's your attitude? Seriously? Now, I don't doubt that there are problematic trainees out there. I don't doubt that for a second. I've had them.
There are.
I've had few of them, but not every one of them. So you got to give the benefit of the doubt, and there's got to be some action on your part to help them.
Yeah.
So.
Well, I worked for Warner, and if anybody has seen my stuff, they know I had a really good experience with Warner. It is what you make of it, and that's what I tell people. There's bad fleet managers, there's bad dispatchers, but there's also good ones. And if you get a bad one, you just ask for a good one.
Right.
You get a bad account, you just switch to a different account. And that's one of the things I like about the larger companies. When you're starting out, you don't really know what you like yet. So larger company gives you the variety to figure out where you belong.
Exactly.
And companies have over the years made some changes to their training environments, trying to, but they're still just not there yet.
Right.
And in my opinion, I think the best scenario is always the one that limits the interaction time. I think the more time you put two people in a situation alone together, the higher the chance for a problem arises, whether it's attitudes, whether it's harassment. It's just, you put two women in a truck together nonstop for weeks on end, we're going to kill each other. I mean, that's just the way it is.
Right. Well, do you remember?
You need a break.
I'm sure you do. You remember 2008 and what happened to the trucking industry in 2008? Those training companies went nuts, and assaults spiked, sexual harassment spiked, because nobody was deadheading trucks anywhere. So you would take a run. I know me and my wife were driving during that period of time, and we ran for FedEx or UPS because we were both hazmat, and we'd make a run, and we'd sit for 2 days on the other end. And then we'd make a run and we'd sit for 2 days. And we were only running for 2 days or 3 days at a time. So I knew if the teams were doing, hazmat teams were doing it, can you imagine what the non-hazmat solos were doing? Or the trainers, that didn't have hazmat. They were getting stuffed, and a lot of trainees don't have their hazmat yet. So that caused a problem then. So we had all those trucks stagnant because of fuel costs and everything. And all that stuff went through the roof. There is one other thing that I witnessed in 2017 with Fry Miller.
Yes, we didn't go over that.
Well, I'm just going to be real brief here. When I came on board, I was a full desk recruiter and I worked in our safety department. And we had a pretty average standard for hiring as far as your traffic tickets, criminal background, stuff like that, right? Pretty average. No more than 2 moving violations within the last 3 years. No 15 or over. No DUIs. No license suspensions. None of that. No misdemeanors ever. No felonies ever. Blah blah blah. Well, company ownership decided that they didn't have enough drivers and they wanted more drivers, and they got with their insurance company because they were self-insured, and they lowered those standards dramatically. It was almost overnight. They went from no DUIs ever to no DUIs in the last 5 years. They went from no felonies ever to no felonies or nonviolent felonies within the last 5 years. You couldn't be on probation or parole, thank goodness. Misdemeanors didn't bother unless it was an advanced misdemeanor. That was almost a felony. And then there's still the 5-year thing still happened. License suspensions were okay as long as it wasn't in the last 5 years. Now, what that tells you, people who get suspended licenses don't obey rules. They don't follow policies. Because if they didn't, they wouldn't have a suspended license. Or if they did, they wouldn't have a suspended license. I don't care whether it's keeping insurance on your car or whatever. You got a suspended license. Now, in my years of doing this, especially, people like that are more prone to violate other rules.
Yep.
Because if you'll violate traffic laws where there's actual financial cost to you, you'll certainly violate laws where there's no direct financial cost. Mm-hmm. And you'll violate social laws and social norms as well. So hiring in a bunch of criminals with, people with a criminal background versus people without a criminal background caused an influx of who knows what. My son worked in their detail department, and he noted to me 4 different trucks that came in on tow trucks that were released by either the FBI or the Oklahoma Bureau of Investigations because drivers had kidnapped or enticed young runaway girls into their truck. And thank God they were caught. They were caught.
That's
but
crazy.
Who knows how many of them weren't caught?
Yeah, that, the ATA has been pushing to put felons in trucks. And while I'm all for felons in certain situations having a second chance, if there's any with a violent criminal history, sexual assaults, I think that that's just giving open rein, and you're putting people in a truck who have no oversight. We can't track them. Child offenders, sex offenders, you can't track them. Right. And so you don't know where they are. They have access. I mean, look at all the companies, and this is just a great example I like to use is Walmart grocery uses contract carriers. Okay. So Walmart has a stricter vetting process than other carriers. So you have one of those other carriers doing your groceries. Maybe they're a violent offender, then they're at the local Walmart, and we don't know, they stay overnight. Right. They, that's just, I think that it's putting us up for failure.
It's funny you should bring that up, but it tracks right into the trucking industry and the training side of it. But in the towing industry, I've been in towing for 37 years. There was a guy in Fort Worth that really strongly advocated here in Texas that we should bring convicted felons into the towing industry because they make good, hard workers. And I completely freaked out and put up a wall. And we actually got in an argument. Well, at a tow show 6 years ago in Alabama, he and I actually got in an argument outside. I said, I want you to think about this. You got a convicted felon. Let's say it's a nonviolent felony, embezzlement. Okay. That's not a rape or a murder or an assault. That's taking somebody's money. Do you realize that as a tow guy, though, I have access to your name, address, phone number, everything about you, because I'm going to go pick up your car at your house and take it to the shop. Now I know what kind of car you drive. I know where you live. Okay. And most likely, if your car breaks down at the mall or at your workplace or whatever, I'm going to pick you up with it and give you a ride home.
Yep.
Really? I'm like, dude, no, this is not a place for felons. I don't care what the nature of the felony is.
Well, some of them, yes, but violent, no. Well, and tow truck embezzling. I mean, there's a lot of things here, but as far as
that's just as a tow guy, you're going to collect money. You're going to handle money. Yeah. I'm going to run credit cards, for whatever tow, because like even with AAA, there's a limit as to how far AAA pays. Well, if we got to go further than that, you come out of pocket for it. I'm going to take money from you. It just, the whole idea was bad. And it really comes into the trucking training world because anybody with a background like that now has access to young men and young women who want to learn and just want to start a career and do their thing. And they're a target.
Yeah, they are. So knowing all this, if you could sit down with trucking company executives and you could say one thing or a few things to you, if there was a point you wanted to get across to them, what would you say? What would you want them to hear?
Well, two things. We talked a little bit ago about bringing more female trainers in, incentivizing them to be there, paying them really well, and restricting the team driving and the overnights and all that, because I think that would change the whole environment of training. And
Me too.
Either you're dedicated to the training and producing good people, because me personally, I'd want to keep those trainees around in my fleet. I want them trained really well by good people, and I want to keep them. That's the whole, because we can grow and we can get more accounts and more trucks. That's the whole concept.
Retention.
And instead of a mill of just getting people in, get subsidies, kicking them down the road for whatever reason. The other side of that is, again, concentrate on training, but prosecute the living snot out of anyone that we can that has committed an offense, whether it's even just a sexual harassment scenario, may not even rise to the level of assault, but sexual harassment needs to go on that person's hire right report. Be honest. Don't say resigned, because that's all you see on a hire right report. I see them every day. Terminated, eligible for hire, will discuss. Really? If they were terminated for sexual harassment, and then the next employer looks at that, they don't have any reason not to hire them. They were terminated.
Yep.
Well, maybe they were laid off. Maybe the trucking company was cutting back. There's a lot of trucking companies doing that. You're not helping that next company make a decent decision. And now they're going to hire somebody who's going to cause you a lot of problems.
Yep. That's true. It gives you a lot to think about. So I want to thank you so much for taking the time out today.
Absolutely.
With us. It's been a great episode. We've given them a lot of information and real world scenarios.
Probably too much. Sorry.
That's okay. I do want to say, drivers, if you have encountered anything out on the road, there are some great resources out there. RAIN, you can call them at 1-800-656-HOPE. And as you may not know, I am a board member for Real Women in Trucking. We are an advocacy group. So if you have encountered any sexual assault or sexual harassment and you need someone to talk to, you can reach out to one of us. We are always open to listen and help you navigate what is normally a very stressful situation. And you can be anonymous. Anything else you'd like to say before we sign off?
I'm good. I'd love to delve into this more and really, again, I'd love to own that company where we incentivize trainers, especially female trainers, and make it a safe environment, and understand that if you're doing something wrong, you're going to be terminated, and I'm going to document the heck out of it to make sure it doesn't happen to the next company.
Exactly.
Because that next company might have every good intention, and just running a trucking company and moving freight, and they hire you and they didn't get a chance to dodge a bullet, and I'd like them to be able to do that.
Okay, so before we sign off, James, why don't you tell our viewers about your books and where they can find you if they'd like to learn more about you?
Well, I'm on Amazon and Kindle. I've got 2 trucking industry books. I got serious for a little while. One is called Scale Your Load, and the other one is Plan Your Trip, and it's aimed at new drivers. There's some funny stories in there I hope you find funny, but more than anything, it's informative about how to scale a truck, why, how, when, all of those things, and how to plan trips, because I can't tell you the number of times where experienced drivers I ran out of time right in the middle of Houston. I'm like, why would you do that? There's nowhere to park in the middle of Houston. You either stop before or you go after, it is what it is. But things like that make you more efficient, and I can count on one hand the number of times I didn't get a shower in all these years every day. And so people going a week without a shower and complaining about having to eat Vienna sausage out of a can. I'm sorry. You don't have to do that. It is so easy to plan ahead and do anything. I've got a 7-book series called the Vengeance series. It's about a ex-Air Force guy that moves exotic equipment for a living, exotic cars, that gets into some vigilantism and ends up teaming up with
Ah,
a female Marine, and they actually SWAT team style rescue girls who've been kidnapped for the sex trade. They go to some foreign countries and get to kill bad guys. It's pretty cool.
there you
Um,
guys go. You got 2 books that'll help you be awesome truck drivers, and then you got 7 more books that help you kill the time at the shippers when you're in the dock, you know. So
last but not least is profit and loss, the complications of negative behavior. And I talk about
hey,
why. Well, people who are miserable, people who complain as a second language, how you doing? Oh, my feet hurt. I'm tired. People don't want to hear that. But what I found though is by not producing endorphins, you're actually hurting your own immune system. And
yep,
people, you ever notice people that are miserable are always sick?
yep.
That's why. People who are somewhat cheery, you don't have to be that person, but you got to, somewhat cheery, they beat a cold in 3 or 4 days.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
there's another
yeah.
book out there.
Colts know better than to mess with me. I mean,
Yeah.
they're like, "Nope, not her."
Right.
Not all right, great. And you are on all the socials. I take it. I know
I
you're
am.
on
I'm on LinkedIn. Well, my Facebook is classified because um, I get
personal.
investigated frequently by
Oh
lawyers and
yeah,
private
yeah, yeah.
investigators because I'm an expert witness. They're looking for anything they can get. Well, like this podcast, I'll be asked about it 6 months from now. I guarantee it. Well, you said this and blah blah, whatever. Yeah, trust me. So I'm kind of careful about it, but on LinkedIn, I really do a lot of activity, and I do a lot of these podcasts and things like that. So
Great. All right. Well, it was great having you. All right.
you
I'm going
too.
to sign off now. Thank you, everybody, for listening into this episode of Trucking with Tammy Behind the Curtain, a safety expert's view on harassment in trucking. See you next Thursday. Have a great week.
Take care, Tammy. Thank you.